Hello, this is Jim Peters with Peters Principles, and as you know, you never know who you're going to get on Peters Principles, and today we're lucky enough to have gotten Matt LeLacheur, who is running for City Council. Matt, thank you for coming.
Jim, thanks for having me.
Matt's from a relatively well-known last name, partially because the ballpark's named after his grandfather, and that must be kind of a thrill.
It's very nice. It's a wonderful tribute to a man who taught me and most of my family and some other Llewellyans a thing or two about how to do it right and how to service constituents, how to really just be a good man and a good person for the people of the city of Lowell and the people you interact with. So it's a great honor to my family and something I have a lot to live up to when it comes to what he's been and done. So.
You do have a lot to live up. I remember him well. I was friends with your aunt. Joanne, and
Joanne will be happy that she just made television, so that'll be great.
Oh, that's good. Yeah, Joanne was quite a person, and she, your grandfather put in an outside pool in his house.
Absolutely.
And she had us over for a couple of parties, and it was.
My cousins and I enjoyed that pool a little bit.
Yeah, I'm sure you did. It was a lot of fun. It was remarkable. But that's how I remember your father, and then I remember him also as Stolpine Meats.
Yeah, yep.
I've got the name right?
Yeah, Stolpine Market.
Stolpine Market.
Stolpine
That's
Market.
what I thought.
Yep.
Okay, so I remember him well with Stolpine Market, and he was one of the people who stood out in that particular crowd. The same way the Cody stand out in the crowd now.
Sure.
The meat crowd, but. He was a nice guy to know, and I was talking to John McDonough about him, and John said he was the type of person that I would be traveling from my parents' house to my father's work, and Mr. LeLacheur would pull over, move all the kids over, and say, "Oh, make room for one more," and he would take me to my father's work, and I said, "Well, that was nice of him." So he was a genuinely nice guy, and I think that's the part that everybody remembers.
Yeah, I mean, the phrase I hear all the time is universally respected and loved, liked, depending on how close the relationship, and hopefully, as I say, that'll assist me as I'm trying to go out and carry on that legacy and maybe bring forward some of the the new things and new ideas and places where hopefully we can continue to move the city forward.
What are some of your major ideas?
Well, I think what the impetus for me deciding to get involved is I think we're at a window in time here in Lowell where we've got a lot right in recent years, and previous politicians and business leaders have led us to a point where I really think as a gateway city we can do some things that would be really special. And after long discussions with my wife, who is not a politician, but is my guide in all of this, it just seemed like now between the Hamilton Innovation District and the new high school, and a number of the other projects, from the condominium projects to the Athenian Corner, there's a lot that's coming. And I think if we could get this right, if we really take our time and take care to add to the tax base, to do what's right for the students, to have a kind of a shining jewel of an education system in a gatehouse, in a gateway community, I really think we put ourselves on the map as having, instead of Lowell is up and coming, I think Lowell can arrive in this next window, and that's really the reason why I decided to run.
Well, I think that Lowell has arrived just based on my own experiences with the city, and Lowell has definitely done its best to be. It is an entity. And I remember my son coming up to me, who lives in Boylston, Mass, because he's a firefighter in Northborough and has to live within 10 miles of Northborough. So he lives in Boylston. And he came up to me and said, "Dad, what's all this stuff about Lowell?" And I said, "Well, what stuff about Lowell?" He said, "Nothing stops it. It just keeps going. It's just Lowell. people talk about it all the time. Lowell does this and Lowell does that. And I said, well, it's because Lowell's the center of the universe. That's what your uncle used to say.
Yeah.
And he said, Uncle Paul? And I said, yeah, Uncle Paul Songus. And he said, he used to say Lowell was the center of the universe. And I said, yeah. And he said, well, that explains some of it. It doesn't explain all of it, Dad, but it explains some of it.
I try to tell, I have a business partner, coworker, who, when he talks about how impassioned I am when I talk about the city of Lowell, he laughs. He doesn't live in the town that he grew up in. And recently he was at a birthday party, and he was surrounded by Lowellians while he was out in Boxford, and listening to stories about Lowell. And when we spoke, it was funny. He said, it's unbelievable. It feels like Lowell touches everywhere in some way, shape, or form. Doesn't matter where you go. You end up being touched by Lowell.
Just in terms of politics, it's been an extremely good ride for a city this size.
Absolutely.
In terms of politics, we've had my brother-in-law as U.S. Senator. We've had Benjamin Butler as the governor and Civil War general, and a few other people who came out and were very noteworthy. Yeah. Including your grandfather.
Well, never mind, you have to stop through. Mike Dukakis had to come through, John Kerry had to come through. People, you have to make sure you make your bones here in Lowell. It's kind of how it seems.
That's exactly right. Yeah. So, but what else is on your plate? I guess I talk to a lot of people, and taxes are their main concern, because of course we're going to have a tax increase with the high school, and a lot of the older people are mostly worried about taxes and how that's going to affect them. And I recently paid off my house, which I was very pleased about, and I noticed that my taxes were not that much lower than my mortgage had been.
Sure.
And that was going to be a bit of a problem. Where are we going with, under your tutelage, where are we going with the taxes?
I don't think there's any debate or discussion that anybody could have surrounding taxes where someone says, I really would like to pay more. So I think in all instances, what we're looking to do is try to be creative and try to protect some of the individuals who a minor tax increase can be a major problem for them moving forward. The way I view it might be slightly different, but my goal and the way I would like to approach this is the city is going to continue to have a recurring problem as special ed costs continue, transportation costs continue to rise, and a number of other school-related and non-school related items continue to cut into the budget, from pension and retirement and things of that nature. We need to grow the base.
Right.
And that's something that's been said and people have tried to focus on, but that's really where I think we are. We have an opportunity here. We have a chance between the Hamilton Innovation District and potentially down at the high school site and a number of other places to enhance that base. And the reason that works for someone who is on some level of either fixed income or is trying to keep that tax bill within their budget, this allows us to potentially have more revenue coming in without the rate going up.
Right.
And it's the goal of everyone. But I think we have to focus. I think right now we have a chance to do some things, and the current administration has done things with the Markley Group coming in and Kronos now coming in.
Right.
That momentum needs to continue, because if we get it right, then this annual increase of the residential tax rate and eventually commercial and industrial tax rate as well, we can dampen that or hold that down if we can expand the base. And that's really what I would like to do more than anything, is try to find ways to be creative in how to expand the base so that we can hold down taxes as we move forward.
Now, who do we have in Industrial Avenue that's corporate headquarters? Is that Microsoft? No, that wouldn't be Microsoft. It'll come to me.
Okay.
Okay. Because they're a major employer in Lowell.
Oh, okay. Yeah, Verizon's over there.
Verizon's over there.
Very large. Kronos coming in at the old Wayne Tower.
Kronos is at the old Wayne Tower, and they took up one tower, from what I understand.
Exactly. Yep.
And the one that I always can't name is something like Microwave or Microsoft or something. But they are in the old Hale Howard district, and a lot has been done for Lowell by those businesses.
Absolutely.
And I had the opportunity to be introduced to one of the more well-known Lowell benefactors. He told me a story about my brother-in-law calling him up saying, "We need Kittredge Park to be cleaned up. I need X amount of thousands of dollars." And the guy just wrote out a check and gave it to him, but he remembered that.
But that's Lowell, isn't it, Jim? I mean, Lowell has always been, as we started, it's always been a can-do city, and just good enough has never been good enough. And as you referenced, Paul Tsongas is a perfect example. 40 years ago, when we were talking national park down here, I don't think anybody was waking up with the vision of an urban national park, maybe other than Paul Tsongas, Patrick Mogan, and a few other individuals. Right. That's the type of we can do it and look what now we have attitude that I think we have to carry forward now, because the window is here. As we make this decision on what's going to happen at the high school, as we make the decision of who's going to be anchor tenants next to in the Hamilton Innovation District, as we expand the individuals that are going to be homeowners, or at least condominium owners, and shopping and being in downtown Lowell, this is a window to reshape some of those things and do it for the future, so that we aren't in the budget crisis that can arise when we have to go back to 1.5 to 2.5 annual increases on residential tax rates. And this is the window. I think we need to take advantage of it.
I think we are taking advantage of it, to be honest with you.
I think so.
I think so. The Lowell High School is a major divider in the city right now.
It is.
And it's too bad that the city is divided along the lines of Lowell High School, because Lowell High School has done such a marvelous job over the years of bringing the entire city together. And what's your stand on the high school, and what do you think needs to be done? And I'm not just talking about placement, I'm talking about curriculum too.
Sure. Well, I'm a Lowell High grad myself, as is my wife. My kids are in the Lowell public school system, and they will be going to Lowell High School regardless of the location of where it is. I would say I've been out publicly and will continue to say I believe the best option educationally and the best option for the city as a whole is a new construction out at Cawley. Many of the downtown supporters that I've spoken with have been fantastic, because they push the envelope as to what we'll need to do to make that Cawley site the most viable and the best option. But I just believe, when all is said and done, the ability to have the campus-style environment, which leaves the space to do what we need to do into the future, as other things may arise, will be in an environment where there's other opportunities that will not involve any further land taking or anything that might slow the changes in curriculum that may arise as technology advances. I think we put ourselves in a better position if we're out at Cawley now. I also believe that the eminent domain taking of that building is something we have to take great care when we decide in this city that we're going to take something along those lines, that we're going to take a business.
Well, I had Ed Kennedy on City Life this morning, and he said something about taking the eminent domain thing. And he said that we're going to end up taking it by eminent domain pieces of property in Belvedere that we absolutely have to have in order to put in sidewalks, in order to do some of the stuff that's going to have to be done for Cawley.
Yeah.
And I had a sidewalk put in front of my house, and let me tell you, it's heavy cranes. It's big trucks. It's a major thing, and I only had a 2-block area.
Yeah.
So,
the residents that are closest to where that site would be have the greatest concern, and they should. And they should be concerned as to what is changing about their environment that either is going to be positive or negative. What we have to do as leaders in the city is try to think of the whole environment, the whole city. And it's just my opinion that the whole city gains if we decide that that is the environment where we want to put our students moving forward. There will be some land taking that may need to happen depending upon how the sidewalks are constructed, but safety of those kids is something that we're going to need to handle. So that's a perfect example, though, Jim, of people who are in that area raising a point that anyone who's a Colley supporter needs to listen to. They need to hear and understand that this is something that will have to be done, and can we do this as a city? I just choose to look at it similarly to, as you say, as Paul Tsongas and my grandfather and others have looked at. We can do this. We can do this, and it allows the city to have that access to that land in downtown, that if we don't have access to that land for the next 50 to 70 years, that's non-taxable land. And then we're putting ourselves in a position where we have yet another increase that can be coming on the residential side if we don't bring those types of properties online on the commercial side and make them taxable.
I think that I think the whole debate is unfortunate. I think that it's been extremely difficult for a lot of people, and I'm on the other side.
A lot of friends have been, I won't say at each other's throats, but friendships have been frayed without question over this issue.
Yeah, I have been on the side of the downtown since I don't know, for 3 years now. So everybody knows which side I'm coming from, and I have JimPetersBlog.com, which spells out what I thought about 2 high schools in the city. One high school that was the one that we have that would be more like option 3. Eminent domain issues, and a variety of different issues that I wrote about. And, you know, I've got to say that the people have been very kind to me, even though we disagree. So.
Well, I think all sides are being painted with a bad brush, unfortunately, on this. The good news is, regardless of what happens, unless there are things that we can't foresee, we're getting a new high school. We need a new high school. The city has to have a new high school moving forward. So I think all parties involved understand that. After you get past that, it starts to become degrees of good, I guess I would say. Is this good enough? Is this good enough? Does this make me happy enough? To please everyone on everything is almost impossible, specifically in politics. I know that that's going to be difficult. But anytime you have to lead and make a decision, you have to stand on principle of what you believe. And I just believe that busing students to the high school, regardless of site, we need to do that. We need to do that. We're one of only a few cities, or one of only a few communities that do not do that currently. And I have a hard time, regardless of side of the debate that you're on, I have a hard time believing that the student who has to wake up in February and trudge down the street to get to the high school, regardless of where you're coming from, be it 5 minutes or 50 minutes, that student would rather do that than get on a yellow bus. And so I think we need to be creative, and we need to figure out how we're going to handle this, because I think it's been something that's been masked over by the use of the LRTA. I rode the bus, rode the LRTA until I was able to scrape enough cash together to have an old beater of a car and get myself there. Yeah. But I think it's something that we would need to do. And if we can all agree that that's something that's for the best for the students, now let's move on to the other things that have everyone weighing the options on either side. Because I do believe that's something that, in my opinion, should be off the table. We should do it. We should do it, and we need to figure out how we're going to afford to do that. And I think part of that is the downtown site.
Well, I believe this the figure I got from the education office, the administrative office for the superintendent, was that the buses currently cost $9 million a year. Now, I'm a little bit worried that we're going to be pushing buses all the way from Pawtucketville to Colley, which is all the way across the town. And
were you fortunate enough to see John Dakota's plan that he had laid out when John, who handles transportation obviously here in the city? One of the major benefits, I'm sorry to interrupt, I want to make sure that one of the major benefits, thought process here, is the city has a chance to move to a different zone structure,
Right.
which actually lowers the cost of busing and would keep us from having to bus students at a younger age across the city at such a high level, which would then allow us to utilize those same buses as they move forward to get the students to the high school. So if we're utilizing the existing assets in a better way, that's exactly what we want to be here in Lowell. We want to find creative ways to use our existing infrastructure, our existing money, to do better for the residents in the.
Well, I've heard that John Dakota has a plan, which is a good thing because that's his job. And I've heard that it includes the busing of individual students on buses with, let's say, you might have some high school kids on a bus, but you might also have some.
See that? I think that's beyond where the facts lie, and then it gets into what people are discussing.
Okay.
From what I understand at this point, the discussions have been about getting it into more of a 5-zone style city. And the elementary students would be staying within their zone wherever possible, if not in all cases.
But doesn't neighborhood schooling take part of that autonomy away?
So we can move to it. We can still be in line with the decree that forced us to move away from neighborhood schooling back in the 80s.
Right.
By going to this system, you can still stay in line with that desegregation order that we had. Further study, no question, has to be done before we know exactly what the solution is going to be. Start times are going to have to change because what you'll do is you'll be using the buses in a 2-tiered system where you'll be taking the elementary school kids, then the high school kids. So everything has to be worked to get everyone on the same schedule. So there's disruption that may come to that. Families that are used to having students going to school at 9:10 in the morning may all of a sudden now have an 8:15 or a 7:45, however we work it out. I just choose to look at this as, in the end, what's right for the students, what's right for the city, is for every student in the city of Lowell to be able to safely get to school comfortably, warmly in the winter, cool in the summer, whatever the case may be, or in the late spring. We need to do that. I think it's the right thing to do. And I think the framework is there to do it. Further debate and discussion is going to have to be had on this in order to get to a final solution that works for everybody. But if we could start from the framework that here in Lowell we take care of everyone. We take care of the low-income student to the highest income family. I think this is something that's right, something we need to do, regardless of where the high school ends up. But I truly believe that once you look at the design plans for what is possible at that Cawley location, it's something that I think families throughout the city could be. We could have the pride in the high school. You referenced the high school normally pulls everyone together when the baseball team's having a great season, or the girls cross country, boys, whatever it may be. When they're having, it pulls the city together. We all check the Sun the next day or online in the morning to see if we won advanced in state tournaments and how they did in science.
Well, they just said not Alice in Wonderland.
Yeah, it was the end of April. Just get Wizard of Oz.
Wizard of Oz.
And these are the things, and the community will pull back together. It will rally around whatever is decided on June 13th. I think we will. I just think for the counselors, and if it were my decision, if I were fortunate enough to have one of the votes at this point, I just think we need to think to the future. And I believe that the best option for Lowell, for all aspects, for the tax base, for the existing students, for the future of where curriculum is going to go, I just don't think it can be matched by keeping it here. As we know, we're going to continue to have space issues. We have certain science classes that are going to have to be smaller based on what's out there at this point. We have other things, never mind. I spent some years working in environmental compliance, and so I have a little bit of a knowledge in this space. We have no idea what's underneath that professional building.
That's exactly right. Yeah.
So there are some other things that'll be out there that we'll have to concern.
Okay, well, we have about 2 minutes left, so I would like you to talk about whatever you want to talk about.
Oh, sure. Well, for me, for all of the residents of the city, my goal, my thought process in all of this is to try to advance forward ideas and plans that put us in the best position possible to change a little bit of the dynamic that we've had. We have been chasing the financial burden for years, and I think if we can get out in front, which we've already started to do, as you've mentioned, I think it can allow us to reinvest in some of the things the constituents, the residents are looking for. We have infrastructure issues we have to take care of. We have to make sure the schools stay at the highest level possible. Nothing keeps a community together like a strong school system, and it's amazing what Lowell's been able to do in its time. While through my current position, what I currently do for work, I travel all around the Commonwealth, and I'll tell you, the city of Lowell is way ahead of most of the other gateway cities and other cities as well. Right. And so it's our chance here to keep pushing that ball forward. And so my hope is that the residents of the city of Lowell will look and see me as someone who's aspirational, who's reaching out for the future of what we can do, right, and maybe a new voice with some new ideas to go with some of the individuals that have done a great job getting us to where we are, might help keep pushing the ball forward on things like the Hamilton Innovation District, right, because that is going to be a key as we move forward.
This has been Jim Peters with Matt LeLacheur on Peters Principles, and Matt, you're very well spoken.
Thank you.
I have to say that for you, and it's a pleasure to have you on. We'd like to have you on again.
Well, thank you very much. My wife, will tell you that I don't know if she would call it well spoken. She would say, a pain in the butt. Who like most of us.
Who talks a lot, right?
Yeah, yeah.
All right. Okay. Thank you very much for being on, and I wish you luck.
Thanks for having me. Thank you very much.